Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network, based in the Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hello, Dick Morris.
You know,
first of all, it's afternoon. Good afternoon.
In the British elections that took place last week, and the counting continued into this week, there was a sea change, a revolution, a gigantic shift, a permanent shift in the politics of the world's oldest democracy. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer was horribly defeated with his Labour Party. As the final results came in Saturday, Labour suffered a net loss of more than 1,100 local council seats across England, lost control of several local authorities it had held for decades, and was booted from power in Wales after 27 years.
Wow.
Anti-immigration party Reform UK, run by Nigel Farage, gained over 1,300 seats across England and made significant gains in legislative elections in Wales and Scotland. But a growing number of Labour lawmakers urged Prime Minister Keir Starmer to set a timetable for his departing this year. There has to be a timetable. There should be an orderly transition of leadership. The elections were a breakthrough for Reform UK, the hard right party led by the veteran nationalist politician Nigel Farage, running on an anti-establishment and anti-immigration message. The party won hundreds of local council seats in working-class areas in England's north, such as Sunderland, and there was solid Labour turf for decades. It also made gains from the Conservatives in areas like Essex, east of London, and increased its vote share in Wales and Scotland, new terrain for the party. Farage said the results marked a historic shift in British politics and said he's confident that the voters who have come to us are not doing it as a short-term protest. Reform UK currently holds just 8 of the 650 seats in the House of Commons.
Wow.
That gives you a sense of how dramatic this was.
Wow.
And it's unclear that it could repeat this on a national level.
Let me ask you this question. What are the two platforms with the versus Farage against the other guys?
Well, Farage was the leader of the Brexit forces.
Right.
The ones who wanted to successfully got Britain to leave the EU. And it's a revolution in British politics. Let me tell you a little story about Nigel Farage.
He's a buddy of yours, isn't he?
Yeah. Eileen and I were on a cruise in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean. And a woman came over to us and said, I'd like Dick to be in touch with my husband, who's running a small party in the UK, and would like some help and some advice. And I had just written a column for the Telegraph, the British newspaper,
right,
the conservative newspaper. And I said, have you looked at a map of the world lately? Have you seen the obvious fact that the English Channel is now wider than the Atlantic Ocean? And what I meant by that is that the Britain and UK are an item, and Britain and Europe are not an item. And Britain should leave Europe and become an ally of the U.S. And she loved it, and she told her husband, who was the head of a tiny little political party called the United Kingdom Independence Party, UKIP. And it was not getting any votes. It was 2 or 3% of the vote. And I decided to support him, to help him, because I hate the tyranny of the EU. I hate the pro-open borders policy. It was really an attempt to bring MAGA politics to Britain.
When was this, by the way? 90s?
No, it was 2001 or 2 or something.
Yeah,
And So I went to work for UKIP as a consultant, and they flew me all over Britain to these decrepit little places, including hotels where the bathtub was green and Eileen wouldn't go in it. And I kept pushing this message. And they said, what should our message be to break out of the 1% ghetto? Yeah. And they were saying, should it be that the European agricultural policy was terrible and was hurting British farmers? Should it be immigration? Should it be crime? Should it be taxes? And I listened to all these inputs, and I said, you know what your message should be? No! N-O, no!
That doesn't work on paper, but it's
it does. And I said it should be pronounced the same way a 2-year-old does.
Right.
So that became this slogan for the year. Really? And it was no! And we did the N-O in the colors of the EU. And it was so successful. They went from 2% of the vote to 15% or 18%. And they were launched as a political party. Nigel Farage soon took over as the chairman of the party. The guy I was in touch with retired. Mm-hmm. And it built up its power over the years. And everybody said in British politics, you cannot break the monopoly of the Labour Party versus the Conservative Party. And that was because in each district in the House of Commons, it's a single-member district, which means they vote for one or they vote for the other, and whoever is the first past the post, as they call it in Britain, becomes the member of Parliament.
I don't understand.
Well, you have 8 or 10 candidates running, right, and the guy that comes in first becomes the Parliament member. Mm-hmm. The guy that comes in second gets a polite thank you. So that's why
he's the first loser.
That's why after tremendous success at these local and proportional election races, mm-hmm, they had only 8 seats out of 650 in the House of Commons. And that's the House that decides who the Prime Minister is. These local offices that they just swept were added many years later as a way of giving some local representation. But it's largely symbolic. The power is the House of Commons. And UKIP had no power there. So now Nigel Farage said, reconstituted UKIP as the Reform Party. And he ran in these local elections, and now he's running in the House of Commons. And he's leading both the Labour and the Conservative Party in the polls. They're finishing third and fourth, second and third. And he's going to take over. He's going to be the new prime minister. The election is in about a year or 2 years. And it's the precursor of Donald Trump. The interesting thing was that they took British working class union members away from Labour because the Labour Party did not represent them in keeping immigration out of the country. And they took away from the Conservatives because the Conservatives did not represent their constituency in holding down taxes and holding down government regulations. And Farage and the Reform Party fused those two agendas. And the conventional wisdom before I got there was that they could never win votes on the right because of the Conservative Party or on the left because of the Labour Party. And I proved them wrong. And now they have grown up as a party, and they are probably going to take over Britain.
Oh, it's going to be good.
And it's going to be really as more dramatic even than the MAGA takeover of the U.S. Because a key element of this is the status of Scotland and of Wales. The United Kingdom is 4 countries. It's England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And Northern Ireland is already represented in Parliament. Scotland has always been, and Wales have always been, strongholds of the Labour Party, conservative working class voters. And now they're switching to the Reform Party. And part of that platform is they want to leave the UK, to break it up into 4 separate countries.
Do you think, Dick, I hate saying this all the time, it's Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, after a while, I get tired of hearing it. That they might be looking at that Trump is president here, and the right side is strong, and they have a little backing. You think that has something to do with this?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I didn't want to say it. I wanted you to say
Trump
it.
across the waters.
Right, I know.
But the wonderful thing about it is that it took place about 10 years before Donald Trump entered politics or ran.
With you doing what you did, sure.
And I'm so proud of it. And this may result in breaking off these countries from the UK and making the UK just England. England is about 80% of the UK. Wales is about 7 or 8. Scotland is about 10 or 12. But they may leave. And they are the stronghold for Labour. And with Labour leaving, they will have no alternative but to go to reform.
Dick, and now I got to blow up your butt. I can't believe it. I got to say it. So many times when Trump says, Dick, you're a genius, or I love you, Dick. This is part of it. Something like that you did with Farage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is.
He knows that, and he sees that what's changed in the world because of you.
Well, the first time...
And I hate to, because you're not going to get through the door now when you leave the door.
The first change was that I pushed Brexit. Yeah. And I said, get off from the European Union. Break it off. Have nothing to do with them. And they all said the establishment...
This is what Farage, you told him that? And
that's right. And and at that time the issue was, should we get more representation in the EU? Should we get more seats on the council? Should we get the rotating presidency? And I said, the hell with it.
Yeah, I don't understand any of that.
Just leave the damn thing and make Britain independent again. The party was called the United Kingdom Independence Party. And they won. They succeeded. And now this is the next step. And you're really looking at a major change in Europe, where Great Britain is basically leaving Europe. And what's happening inevitably is they're becoming closer and closer to the United States. I believe that in the future you're going to be looking at some major changes. I think Alberta in Canada, Western Province, is very possibly going to leave Canada and apply for admission as the 51st state.
I thought that was a kind of bull, like a couple of months ago when I heard it, and Trump talked about it.
And in fact, the Alberta Independence Party, modeled after Reform, and UKIP, has collected enough signatures to force a referendum in Alberta to leave Canada. And I think that's going to pass. And it's the same reason that states like on the west, Montana and Utah, want to leave New York and Los Angeles.
Right.
And I think that's going to work. And I think that you may see an incredible degree of closeness between Britain and the United States.
And what about Greenland then? You talk about
Greenland is more Denmark's problem. But I got to tell you, I think that in the long, long run, maybe 10 years after I'm gone, you will actually see a merger between UK and the US. Winston Churchill first proposed that when France was knocked out of World War II. And Britain was the sole survivor in the fight against Nazism. And he proposed to Roosevelt a merger of the UK and the US.
In what way?
He made that proposal. He said, we should merge. We
should be one?
Yeah.
Wow.
And during the war. And it never went anywhere. But
I never heard of this.
It is fact. But I think that this now may be back on the table. The interesting thing here is in Scotland, the Scottish National Party, which is governed in Edinburgh, which is the capital of Scotland since 2007, won another term, but fell short of a majority, meaning an independence referendum is now probably going to be scheduled. The Party of Wales won the most seats in the Cardiff-based legislature. The party, which has an ambition for Wales to leave the UK, but no plan to do so anytime soon, fell short of a majority, but will likely form a new government.
So you really don't know what's happening there at that point.
You're seeing unbelievable change across the Atlantic Ocean. And I think it's all because of Donald Trump, and it's all likely to come back to us.
Speaking of Donald Trump, China. He went there.
Well...
But hold on, the one thing that I love, and they had to do it, is they had a trash can outside, and everything they got, whether it was their tags that said, welcome to here, and what's your name, and cell phones and gifts, everything went in the trash can. Not one thing from China, not a souvenir, not a pen, nothing.
Yeah, well, they were worried about spies.
Spyware, exactly.
Yeah. Well, The important thing to realize about China, which was not broadcast widely at the time of the summit, is that China is disappearing. China has the world's worst demographic crisis. The one-child policy that they had in China years ago has been so successful in shrinking the population that the estimates are that by the end of the century, China will be the same size as the U.S.,
right?
Maybe smaller. And you're dealing with a country that's really, in effect, disappearing. It's now having the effect of a very aging population, very low productivity, but it's essentially a country that is slowly dying.
We
from
had
its own demographic suicide.
We had this conversation. We did this topic a while back, not long ago, and I said, "Why would it die? They just start making love again, whatever they do, procreating, and the population will pop right back, wouldn't it? Like,
No,
how does that not happen?
It's not that easy. The concerns about middle-class lifestyle, about cost of living, about real estate, reality intervenes and stops them from having children. And they're used to not having children now with the one-child policy.
Yeah, how long has that been, the one child?
20 years.
Wow.
Enough for a generation, enough to take effect.
What are they, how many billion?
Well, they're 1.4 billion.
1.4.
India was 1.3, now it's 1.4. And China is dropping. The United States is 350 million. And the best estimates are that by 2100, the U.S. population will be about 400 million, and China's will be about 1.4 billion. Will be about 400 million. They'll be about the same as the U.S.
If, big ifs.
Yeah, but
I don't see why they can't just procreate.
No, they don't.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't listen. I'm not interested, but wow.
Well, do you volunteer?
No, I will not volunteer at all. All right. When we come back, I think we're going to have Roxana on. What do you say? Yeah,
okay.
Let's do one of
But
Rox.
I also want to talk about the change in the financial system brought about by dollarization.
Oh, okay. All right. When we come back, we'll do that first, then we'll get the Rock on.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show. Sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
Very good, Dick.
Good for you.
Someday I'll have you do this professionally.
There is a revolution going on in global finance. One of the big effects of Trump, one of the big effects of MAGA, called the currency swap. After World War II, when the U.S. was the only country in the world that had any power, the world as a whole set up the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and they set up the World Bank at the same time, and there was an informal agreement that the U.S. would control the World Bank and the Europeans would control the International Monetary Fund. And that has continued straight through. And whenever a nation's currency is in trouble and the nation's economy cannot sustain the amount of money the country has printed, they always turn to the IMF and ask for a bailout. And the IMF always sets really stringent standards of reform, of austerity, of cracking down on overspending, of cutting out deficits, and then comes through with the loan to the country.
Who runs this thing? Who's the head
A European,
honcho?
I forget the name of the guy now, but chosen by the Europeans, a European bank.
Do all the countries that are in it vote on
that.
if the United States is going to get money or England?
Yes. Well, on whether England's going.
Is it a simple majority? Is it?
Yeah, but a client of mine, Rajoy, who used to be the Prime Minister of Spain, was the chairman of the IMF. And increasingly, and the view was that the U.S. would leave it alone. The IMF would control the currency. And when the Southern European currencies, like Greece and Italy and Spain, began to falter in the face of the euro and Britain, and the IMF came to the rescue. Now, Trump has changed that system in a dramatic and fundamental way and basically reworked this financial system that has existed since the end of World War II. When Milei, the president of Argentina. Needed help with his currency because of years of incredible inflation, 200, 300% inflation, he turned to the IMF like they always have, and the IMF made all sorts of demands. Then he turned to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump said, no, I don't agree with the IMF. I think you ought to be able to, I think you need austerity, you need to cut the overspending, you need to balance your budget, and if you do that, I will give you the money. I will eliminate the need for the IMF. We'll have what we call a currency swap.
I call it loan sharking.
You give me Argentine pesos and I'll give you dollars. And Milei said, that is great. And Trump said, you go ahead and make the reforms you have in mind. Rip apart the Argentine economy. Cast it along less regulation, free market, government principles, just like I'm doing in America. And I will make sure that you have the currency to cushion yourself as you go through this change. And Milei said, really? And he said, yep, absolutely. And then Milei ran for parliament, and his party went from very small to dominating Argentina. That precedent of currency swap is now spreading throughout the world. And Trump is increasingly telling countries, forget the IMF, forget the European bankers, just deal with us. And the standard as to whether we'll bail you out and whether we won't bail you out, we'll swap.
What's the standard?
We'll give you some of our dollars in return for your local currency. The standard is, do you like the U.S.? Do you help us? Do you do our bidding? Do you vote with us?
Will you put up a Trump tower?
Are you good on tariffs? What are you doing to help American policy? And he really set that up as a criterion. Are you pro-American? Are you willing to really listen to the guidance from the U.S.? And these countries have basically said yes. And many of them have adopted the dollar as their primary currency. There are U.S. dollar swaps with Gulf nations, with Asian partners, and
Then you got regional reserve pools. What is that?
That's the same thing. It's saying we're going to take the currencies in your area and we're going to replace them with the dollar. Or we're going to swap dollars for them. And sometimes we'll do this on a temporary basis. Sometimes we'll do it on a permanent basis. And the trend had been de-dollarization, withdrawing from the dollar and having these countries work off a market basket, they call it, of other currencies and become closer to the yuan and other currencies like that. But Trump has said, do the exact opposite. Become closer to the United States. Become our allies in all ways. Become very subservient to us. Do what we want.
Did Milei ever get the dollarization he was going for? I know he ran on that.
This replaces it.
This replaces that, because that's what he wanted to do.
He wanted to replace it in Argentina, replace the peso with the dollar. Instead, what he's done is by swapping pesos for dollars with the U.S., he's basically converted Argentina to the dollar.
And what does that mean? That we now have pesos and we can go buy their stuff with their pesos?
No,
what does this mean?
No, it means that we give him money in return for our money. And we basically stabilize their currency, which is a kind word for saying we make it American. Mm-hmm. And Trump
the dollar stays strong in South America.
The dollar stays strong, and Trump has taken over the world. Mm-hmm. Increasingly, these countries are not concerned about what the European bankers say, but about what the U.S. says.
Sure.
It's a dramatic, unbelievable change. So the goal is to reverse dependence on U.S. dollar funding, the willingness of the IMF to sometimes help, sometimes not, and Western-controlled financial networks. Instead, replace it with bilateral currency swaps between the U.S. and these countries. Regional reserve pools, which are regional efforts to stabilize the currencies. And get rid of the BRICS, get rid of the effort to replace the dollar, and instead replace the IMF. I can't tell you how fundamental and enormous that change is.
Wow.
And yet it's coming. So in these first two stories today, one is the collapse really of Britain and the growth in Britain of Trump-like reforms. MAGA spreads across the Atlantic Ocean is really what the local British elections are about. And here MAGA is replacing the IMF and the idea of the Europeans controlling the currencies. And it's increasingly going to be a matter of American control.
What country do you think will be after England? Italy?
No, I mean, I think it's hard to tell. The IMF routinely lends out large amounts of money to small countries, and I think you're going to see a lot of that throughout Africa and throughout Asia.
Wow, it's unbelievable. Well,
no.
Are you ready? You ready for On the Rocks?
Okay.
Okay, let's have Roxana on. And how you doing, Roxana?
Hi, Dick. Hi, Doug.
Hey,
She always
Rox,
says
how
hi,
are you?
Dick, first. What's with that, Roxana?
Good afternoon. We'll switch it up a little bit. But bombshell, left-wing organization, tech organization, pays full salaries of 80 MSM, mainstream media, journalists.
Oh.
If you want to talk about media corruption, how about the discovery that a left-wing political organization has embedded 80 journalists in the corporate media? Breitbart News has previously reported on LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman's dark money election meddling, as well as Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskovitz, deep penetration of President Joe Biden's administration with AI activists. Behind this corruption is a far-left globalist organization called EA, Effective Altruism, which the New York Post describes as a billionaire-backed movement, quote, that aims to solve the world's problems, which wants to send the message that unchecked AI will destroy us all, and that we must prioritize causes like climate change, global health, poverty, and pandemics. More journalists have become freelance and left-winged, living this quote that was written in 1887, 140 years ago, by Lord Acton. He wrote a note to Bishop Bandel Creighton, quote, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Acton was known for his lifelong study of the history of freedom and unchecked power. It was a work he never completed. And so here we are.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
But on this day, just as a little side note, in 1803, the patent for the reaping machine for agriculture was patented by John Hawkins. So that was something very big.
The
Yeah.
start really of the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
It began with fabrics and with the ability to manufacture shirts and
The loom
clothing,
and
the
all that
looms.
stuff, sure.
And that
The
in turn led
5S.
to the cotton gin.
What is this, Roxana?
Not only George Washington quoted about how important it was, but so did Reagan, who was very involved. The 5 F's, which is food, fiber, fuel, forestry, and flowers. It's all under the roof of agriculture, and it actually fuels everything in the country every day, living for everyday people, which is nutrition, clothing, energy, aesthetics, millions of jobs, millions of companies, and mom and pop, too. I mean, people don't realize that agriculture, the farming of certain things, creates not only power, but clothing and fuel, just forestry. It's just amazing. So,
Beautiful. Hey, it is showing Spicer on TV, Dick. We
Oh,
just
good.
went to
Yeah.
his thing the other night.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Rock.
you.
That
Thank
was
you, Rock.
fantastic. Thank you. And but soon we're having. Oh, by the way, Roxana, say hello to Sandra while you're still on.
hi, Sandra.
She's not here, but she's listening because we're going to have her on. Not yet. Don't put her on yet because we're going to have Bruce Blakeman on, and I'm going to talk about Hochul later, and then Sandra could talk about that. So
Take care, Rock. Thank you.
thank you, Rock. Okay, so Republicans redistricting. Democrats ramp up aggressive 27 gerrymander drive. What to know? Republicans were initially on the redistricting roll after Supreme Court decision. 4 southern states are wavering on GOP redistricting.
What happened here, as you've been following, is that there was a lawsuit by the Republican Party saying that it was unconstitutional to have congressional district lines based on race. And the Justice Department had been forcing states to gerrymander based on race to create districts that did not represent communities. Some of them were just incredible gerrymanders stretching over miles and cooking and turning to try to get black voters to get the majority of the vote. And the result was that in the 1970s, in the 80s and 90s, the Democratic vote in the South became channeled into 20 or 30 congressional districts that were majority-minority districts. It was all based on the assumption that white voters would never vote for a black candidate, and that to elect blacks to office proportionally, you needed to gerrymander the districts so that they were majority-minority districts. Well, last week, the Supreme Court said that's illegal. It's unconstitutional. You can't take account of race in gerrymandering during district lines. You can take account of party, make it more Democrat, more Republican, but you can't take account to make it blacker or whiter. So that tossed the hot potato into the 2027 election, the 2026 election coming up. And states said, wait a minute, we need to redistrict now because we're following the unconstitutional mandates that the court just overruled. But many governors said, no, we're not going to do that. We're way ahead in our elections. We planned this election. We printed the ballots. In some cases, we've accepted absentee ballots.
But now it's illegal, though.
In some cases, we've even had primaries. And therefore, we're not changing. But Trump has been saying, come on, you can't put the convenience of an election cycle and reprinting ballots over the issue of constitutionality.
Excuse me, Dick, to correct you. Dick Morris said that, and then Trump said that.
Yeah, I did. And basically, Democrats came back and said, let us have one more unconstitutional election. We know that these lines are unconstitutional. We know that they're illegal. We know that we have to change them next year, but that's next year's problem. This year, let us have one more election under these old lines.
Let's kick the pail.
And the issue has been, would they do that? Now there are 6 seats that are at issue, 4 in Mississippi and Louisiana, 4 in Alabama and Louisiana, 1 in Mississippi and 1 in South Carolina.
Well, here, let me go with this.
That are at issue.
The Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves signaled Wednesday that he would cancel a special legislative session that would have drawn the state Supreme Court districts and possibly its racially gerrymandered congressional districts ahead of the midterm election. In South Carolina...
Just up there, in Mississippi, Tate Reeves, the governor, is trying to protect Benny Thompson, who is the chairman of the J6 committee. And Thompson is from a district in Jackson, Mississippi, and would never have won if it were not for gerrymandered lines. And he's trying to protect him. And he's a Republican conservative. He shouldn't be, but he is.
He's a rhino, basically.
Well, he isn't, but Trump is going to drive him crazy if he hasn't changed. Trump is going to take that story and go crazy.
Good. So in South Carolina, the Republican-led state Senate blocked a resolution Tuesday that would have cleared the way for lawmakers to consider a new map that would have redrawn congressional seats held by James Clyburn, a black Democrat. Republicans are stronger when the Democrat Party is vibrant and viable, State Majority Leader Shane Massey, a Republican, said on the floor.
Clyburn is also very important. Clyburn was the only black congressman from South Carolina, the only Republican, and the only Democrat, sorry. The whole state is Republican. And in the last presidential election in 2016, Joe Biden lost a lot of the primaries, all the primaries. Nobody voted for him. But the party leadership wanted Biden to be the candidate. And they forced Kamala Harris and various other people out of the race. And the guy that did that was James Clyburn, a congressman from South Carolina. Because he said, I'm going to South Carolina, moved its primary date to a week before Super Tuesday. And the theory was that if Clyburn could deliver South Carolina, blacks throughout the South would get the signal that they had to support Joe Biden. And they did exactly that. And that's how Joe Biden got the nomination. It's how he got the election. It's how he got to waste 4 years of our lives as president.
All right.
And now the opportunity has come up to get rid of Clyburn. And,
so anyway, the next one is the law.
And the governor of South Carolina, a guy named Henry McMaster, is refusing to redraw the lines. And it's going to be, and if he continues in that role, Clyburn is going to keep his seat for 2 more years, even though it's illegal and unconstitutional.
Wow. So, and Louisiana and Alabama voted to redraw their congressional maps to eliminate the racially gerrymandered districts, but each Republican-led legislature created only one additional Republican-leaning seat instead of 2 seats in each state, as some in the party had hoped. In all, Republicans are poised to forego carving out 4 additional seats that would likely favor Republican congressional candidates in November as the parties battle to cling its razor-thin majority in the House. The South is really dropping the ball. Election analysis Ryan Gerdusky posted on social media. Republicans slowed their redistricting scramble as Democrats plotted a counterattack in 27.
Yeah, good luck with that, guys.
Yeah.
But the counterattack is bull.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But the point is that we really have a chance now to completely change the House of Representatives in this minority-majority decision. And these 4 governors, KIV in Alabama,
Louisiana,
Henry McAndrew, I'm sorry,
I don't know what it is either.
Tate Reeves in Mississippi, McHenry in South Carolina, and these 4 governors.
Yeah, Louisiana and Alabama also.
Jeff Landry in Louisiana.
Right.
These 4 governors must not stand in the way of the reapportionment that's necessary. And President Trump said, don't let partisan convenience stand in the way of constitutionality. And the Democrats are sort of saying, come on, guys, just let us have 1 more election, and we promise we'll be good. We promise in the future we'll abide by the court decision. And these governors need incredible pressure to change their point of view and say, no, we are not going to consciously ask voters to vote for a Congress that the court has just ruled is unconstitutional.
Yeah, right. And Hakeem Jeffrey, he thinks he's going to win this thing. The effort is not over. This is him talking. It's just getting started. He pledged a decisive and forceful response to the recent Republican gerrymandering in the South, assuring reporters who questioned him about the Democrats' extensive redistricting plans. I'm telling you now, this is him again, we will the party aggressive partisanship. Oh, no, I'm telling you now, we will win this. That's what he said. Then the party's aggressive partisan gerrymandering in prior decades have left Democrats with few avenues to carve away Republican-leaning districts. But they plan to squeeze out additional seats in New York, Jersey, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Illinois, Maryland.
These are the flailings of a dying political party.
You ain't kidding.
The only reason the Democrats have any power in the House is because of this racially based districts. And the court has pulled out the rug from under them. And the issue is, will the Republican governors let the rug be pulled out, or will the special interests of their relationships with Clyburn in South Carolina and with Benny Thompson in Mississippi stop the Republican governors from enforcing the Supreme Court decisions this year, right now?
Right. Jersey Senate President Nick Scuderi was talking about it too. But you're right. Then they're not going anywhere. Gotta love it. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back. We'll talk about something with the White House.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. As you know, it takes 60 votes to pass a bill in the Senate because of the filibuster. And a simple majority doesn't mean anything. It's got to be 60 votes. So the Trump administration and Thune, the majority leader, got together and said, let's use reconciliation as a way around this. Reconciliation was invented by Senator Robert Byrd, senator from West Virginia, who said...
The KKK dude.
Yeah, who said we can't sit there and let the government be paralyzed by filibusters. And what we've got to do is when there's a bill about the budget and about spending that's necessary to cut the deficit and to balance the budget, we've got to let it pass with 51 votes.
So this reconciliation has to do with financial.
Yeah.
Budget. Oh, okay.
Has to be that. Can't
okay.
be every bill.
I didn't know that.
And then Trump pounced on that and said, okay, I want a reconciliation bill that has all the necessary ingredients to pass my big, beautiful bill, which was his fundamental tax cut bill. And that passed. It worked. And that's why the economy's doing well now. Then he said, then the Democrats said, I'm going to cut off funding for ICE and Homeland Security. And we got to let them go. We've got to stop them because we have to protect against racism, they claimed, in states like Minnesota. So then Trump came in and said, I'm going to pass a bill to keep Homeland Security and ICE open. And I'm going to use reconciliation to do that. And you won't be able to hold me hostage with a filibuster. And nobody had ever used reconciliation twice in one session, but Trump did. In fact, his reconciliation, his second bill, hasn't fully passed yet, but it will pass.
With the SAVE Act?
It's passed the House and will pass the Senate. Now Trump is saying, I need a third reconciliation bill. I need this to have all sorts of other priorities included. And this will secure funding for national security, and most importantly, the SAVE bill, SAVE, which is Trump's attempt to require photo ID. Any reconciliation bill is going to have to deal with incredibly important needs of national defense. We face new threats from China, from Iran, and various corners of the globe. Ensuring that American defense and industrial base is at its strongest. It's able to meet the needs of a force structure. But the key thing here is that it will include the voting reforms that Trump wants included, which require photo IDs and make it impossible for someone to register without a photo ID and eliminate the fraud that characterized the 2020 election. And the issue now is, will they proceed with a third reconciliation bill? Now, there very, very rarely is there a reconciliation bill. And having one was huge. Having two is an enormous change. Having three is almost unheard of.
So some conservatives initially wanted the second reconciliation bill to include elements of the SAVE Act that could potentially survive the complex procedural rules in the Senate. But the White House ultimately backed Senate leadership in keeping the second reconciliation bill focused more narrowly on funding for the Department of Homeland Security and Secret Service. The $1 billion in proposed Secret Service spending has drawn criticism from Republicans, including Brian Fitzpatrick, because of a portion of it would go towards building the security features in the new ballroom. But you have to have that security features, and that shouldn't go to the regular...
After the assassination.
Right,
attempt.
and after everything. And he was talking about it right from the beginning.
So what's really happening here is that Trump is killing the filibuster, but instead of doing it overtly and in one vote, which a lot of Republicans oppose because they don't think we're always going to have a majority. He's doing it piece by piece by bypassing it with reconciliation.
And they were talking about decades they needed this infrastructure upgrades and security with anything in the White House, especially this.
Yeah.
You know?
The second reconciliation package that passed a while ago was passed largely because of the shutdowns of ICE and Homeland Security by the crazy Democrats. Now this is being driven by the assassin who tried to kill President Trump and walked into the press room shooting and injured a lot of people. And he's demanding security in the ballroom.
That's why the Democrats don't want it until they become president. Then they're going to want security.
Yeah, but they're not going to become president anytime soon.
And this third reconciliation bill has to do with the Save America Act also.
That's right. He's incorporated.
Right.
Trump is taking the need for security demonstrated by the shooting at the conference.
Right.
And building into it elements of the SAVE bill that now can't be filibustered.
Okay, so let's take a break, and when we come back, we got more for you. What do you think of that?
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. You know, people wonder how President Trump is able to be so successful with his legislative program. How is he able to stop the left from blocking it? And the answer is...
balls.
Not balls. Blood and guts and revenge.
That's balls.
And you don't cross Donald Trump and live to tell about it. And we have two great examples of it. One occurred last week when in Louisiana, Senator Bill Cassidy, a Republican, voted to impeach Trump 4 years ago, and Trump vowed to get even. And yesterday he did.
That's Cassidy.
Cassidy, I'm sorry. In the primary on Saturday, Cassidy lost a three-way primary to Letlow, what was his name?
Julia Letlow.
And she entered the race, a congresswoman, and she entered the race when Trump called her and asked her to. And everybody said, you can't win, you're from the northern part of the state. The seat is always from southern Louisiana.
And she say, you know who I know? You know who I know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's when it works.
And Cassidy was defeated. Bill Cassidy is no more, thank goodness.
Bye-bye. Say bye-bye.
And the other bye-bye is coming up is Thomas Massie, M-A-S-S-I-E, another so-called Republican, another rhino, who has always voted against the Trump agenda.
I'll read it. And Massey has slipped more than 5 points behind the GOP challenger, former Navy SEAL businessman Ed Galrine. Qantas Insight survey some 900 likely Republican voters in the Bluegrass State on May 11th and 12th and found that 48.2% support Galrine over narcissistic rhino backstabber Thomas Massie, who has 43.1% support. When learners are pushed to choose, Galrine jumps to an 8-point lead over the insufferable Massie. I love the words they use in here. Early voting is set to begin this week. Election day in Kentucky is next Tuesday, May 19th.
So the lesson of this is don't F with Donald Trump.
That's for sure.
If you try, you're going to get your head handed to him.
You know who I know.
And Trump's success in getting rid of Massie and Cassidy, the senator who is the biggest pain in the butt for him.
Why? What did he do? Explain.
He voted to impeach him.
And he voted
to throw him out of office.
Oh, my God.
And then recently he held up the nomination for Robert Kennedy, demanding that he approve drugs he doesn't want. But the point was impeachment. And Trump literally said, I'm going to get this guy.
I love him. He's such a gangster.
Yeah.
Dick gets a little mad at me. Don't ever say it. Listen, the guy built buildings in New York City all his life, 50 years, with the gangsters, the Teamsters, and everybody else, and he knows how to deal with them. And you got more power than a gangster when you got $1 billion. That's the other thing. And that's how he is. And that's why people love him, and that's why people hate him. You know? But it's so funny.
You're right. Everybody said it's 4 years from now. Lots are going to happen. You need Cassidy's vote on other stuff.
Right.
He'll come on to you with that. You'll forget. You'll forgive. And Trump said, no way.
Don't think
this
so.
son of a gun is going. And now he just got his rear hand.
Comeuppance.
Finished third in a three-way primary.
That's why, you know what? In a couple of years, we need somebody like Marco to be the next president. I mean, I like Vance, but I think Marco.
Well, I know
you got to think about who's going to follow this guy.
The point is that he gets discipline, he gets results, and nobody F's with him.
And we have to go. We have a hard break, and we'll see you after the hour.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hi, welcome back to the Dick Morris, Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Well, Fauci is digging himself into a huge hole.
CIA employee James Erdman testified Wednesday to a Senate panel that Dr. Fauci improperly influenced intelligence reports on the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic in order to downplay findings that most likely resulted from a lab leak in China. Erdman's testimony comes after the statute of limitations. That bothers me. This comes after the statute of limitations for prosecution. It expires Monday, and former President Joe Biden also pardoned Fauci, which shielded the former chief medical advisor to Biden from criminal referral for allegedly lying to Congress about the gain of function research. Erdman claimed Fauci intentionally participated in the cover-up of the COVID-19 origins, stating that he personally provided a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists to the U.S. intelligence community, according to the Post. Analytic managers responsible for examining the origin of COVID made decisions inconsistent with the conclusion of subject matter experts and analytical tradecraft, consistently favoring the theory of zoonosis or natural origin. Zoonosis is an infectious disease that could be transmitted from animals to humans.
From some bat flying by the wet market
they bit his
biting people.
Or they bit his head off like Ozzy. Erdman also testified that Fauci, who serves as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, directly inserted himself into the IC deliberations about the outbreak of COVID-19. Twice he put himself in there. The first time was on February 3rd of 2020 and again on June 4th of 21 in order to push the natural origin narrative. Erdman's testimony comes after he was subpoenaed by the Senate Homeland Security Committee.
So this is probably the greatest crime next to the Holocaust of the century.
Bad.
The launching of the COVID-19 virus, killing 6 million people in the world, including 1 million in the United States.
And Fauci covering
it up and claiming that this was done because of a bat flying around the wet market.
Yeah.
Why did Fauci do that? Because it was done because the issue, the harm resulted from the deliberate use of research that went crazy, that was not effectively policed, that was not effectively regulated.
So he was covering himself.
And maybe covering for the Chinese Communist government.
Why would he do that?
Because he may have been paid.
I was going to say.
We don't know that.
Getting a little on the side.
Now we'll never know that because of the statute of limitations. One of the greatest crimes against humanity of the century may go unpunished.
Wow. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. They could find a loophole. They always do. And Trump's smart. He'll get somebody. The Federal Reserve staff funds Democratic Party lurch to the left. You got to see this. This is unbelievable.
We always go crazy because the Federal Reserve keeps telling us, I'm not going to lower interest rates. I'm not going to stimulate the economy. I'm not going to do anything to help Trump. And now it turns out the reason they're doing it is because they're bought and paid for.
Staffers of the Fed bank system are providing financial backing for the Democratic Party lurch towards the far left. Political donations from the Fed staff have a sharp partisan tilt towards the Democrats. In 24 campaign cycle, 90% of the contributions from the Fed employees went to Democrats. The site doesn't yet, this is an open secret site, that's what it's called. The site doesn't yet have a tally of the political distribution of donations this campaign cycle, but the Fed staff are jumping in, pouring money into contested Democratic primary races and supporting candidates with extreme views. Among the Fed staffers who surfaced in a Free Beacon review were Hampton Feiner, I'm going to call him Feener, Hampton Feiner, whose LinkedIn profile describes him as head of globally systematically important bank supervision, head of 70-person function responsible for on-site and dedicated supervision of New York-based systematically important banks. Feener donated $2,000 in December of 25 to the congressional campaign of Brad Landa, who is running a primary against Dan Goldman, the incumbent Democrat. Landa has the endorsement of socialist Bernie Sanders and the socialist mayor, nightmare, moron man Kami, and is running to cut off Israel's Iron Dome defense against missile attacks from Iran and Hezbollah terrorists. Feener made previous smaller contribution to campaigns for Congress by self-described socialist Ayok Alexandria, whatever her name is, and by Raina Abdelhamid, also a self-described socialist. Irfan Murtusa, why do I get these names, whose LinkedIn profile describes him as senior counsel at a Fed division devoted to enforcement against unfair or deceptive acts or practices, gave $1,250 to the U.S. Senate campaign of Abdul El Sayed, a Michigan Democrat who has backed defunded police activism and boasted about turning away from the flag. This sickens me. Turning away from the flag during the national anthem. El Sayed told campaign staffers he would not take a position on the demise of Ayatollah Khomeini because there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad. F you pig mother, whatever.
And these guys controlled the economy. They controlled the decision as to whether we cut rates or not.
Piece of garbage.
And the staff has now been exposed for this horrible stuff.
Yeah, so I can go on, but basically that's pretty much it.
Incredible.
It's just horrible what these people are.
Now for the big story.
John Brennan admits there was a legion of deep state operatives in the DOJ and the CIA resisting Trump orders. Check this out. Brennan admitted, and he's the former CIA director, okay, admitted to MS Now anchor Nicole Wallace that there is a legion of deep state operatives there. MS Now hacked, wait a second, what is this here? Yeah, MS Now hack Nicole Wallace absurdly accused President Trump of turning DOJ and FBI into political arms of the political operation. But this guy Brennan talked about what really happened.
Yeah, this is the beginning of a huge story, which is getting to the bottom of the Russiagate plot. This was a...
Yeah, but are they going to wait till the statute of limitations is over?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Because this is affecting Trump directly. Remember the scenario. Trump ran against Hillary Clinton in 2016. Everybody said that Hillary was going to win. And when Hillary began to slip in the polls, she decided to claim, with no evidence, no information,
the Steele dossier,
that the Russians were behind Trump and that Putin was pulling Trump's strings. And to prove this, the Democratic Party hired a guy named Steele, who was a former British spy, who wrote a dossier filled with lies, claiming that Donald Trump was in cahoots with Vladimir Putin. And famously, there was something where they claimed that they blackmailed Trump because he was with prostitutes in Moscow who he paid to pee on him.
And they tapped his phone, his campaign, the whole thing. That was Obama.
Yeah, it was. And they, and then after Trump was elected president of the United States, Brennan, who was director of the CIA, still in office, directed the cover-up of these charges and promulgated them. The media refused to cover them initially. Media said, we have no proof of this. So Brennan got the phony report that Steele prepared, and he persuaded Trump, really. I'm sorry. He persuaded Obama to put it in the White House intelligence briefing the week before Trump took over. And when it was in the intelligence briefing, the media, the Washington Post, New York Times, the networks all said, oh, okay, so this must be legitimate. And they covered it.
Was that their insurance plan? Remember, there was
and then
the guy with the girlfriend?
Scenes, they were claiming this would be their insurance plan.
What was the guy and the girlfriend's name?
If Trump won. So this was a plot. And
horrible.
And it continued for over a year and a half until this was proven to be totally bogus, completely false. In the meantime, it broke up Trump's momentum, broke up his first-term plans.
Totally.
Forced Trump on the defensive when he shouldn't have been.
And look how much he got what he achieved during that. Even with all that happening, he still did a bunch of stuff that worked out.
It was amazing. And Brennan is now finally getting his comeuppance. Sean Spicer, who wrote a wonderful new book called Trump 2.0.
Did you start reading it yet?
Yeah, I did.
I haven't yet.
I did.
We just saw him the other night. It was great at the Women's Republican.
Spicer was Trump's press secretary in the first term. And he spoke at the speech at the Women's Republican Club.
He was fantastic.
And he said that this is what's going to come out more and more. The efforts of the CIA and the intelligence community.
And Sean, I got to tell you, he was fantastic. I talked to him about a lot of that at the Republican thing. And just from his speech alone, he was so amazing. I went and grabbed the two books and have him, I know him and we were talking, but he really, I got to tell you, Dick, the insight of all the stuff he had going on, he was brilliant.
And he pointed out that the investigation of Brennan is going to dominate a lot of the headlines. And you're going to see spelled out in black and white how they tried to screw Trump during the first term.
That was amazing. I should have had him on. I didn't even realize we were going to start talking about it. We want to talk about the White House warned state of Medicaid fraud. Vice President Vance plans to warn all 50 states that failure to comply with federal anti-fraud laws could place Medicaid funding at risk, according to senior administration officials. The Trump administration on Wednesday was expected to announce its plan to review state watchdog groups on state Medicaid fraud control units. The Wall Street Journal reported this. The agencies are federally funded and tasked with investigating Medicaid fraud and abuse. Thomas Bell, Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services, told state attorneys general in a letter that states failing to cooperate could see their Medicaid program deemed out of compliance. This means your failure to do your job has put all of your state's Medicaid funds in jeopardy. Bell wrote this to a letter obtained by the Wall Street Journal. Medicaid provides health coverage for millions of Americans, including low-income families, pregnant women, children, seniors, and people with disabilities.
This is particularly important for California, where the investigation has been fierce about Newsom hiding fraud in the Medicaid program. And probably maybe enough to knock Newsom out of contention for the presidency in 28. And Vance has been pursuing it quietly or loudly and unearthing the fraud in Minnesota, California, and Maine, and a bunch of other states. Now Vance is raising the level of the volume of these hearings, and it's very clear that the fraud in Medicaid is going to be investigated thoroughly, and could result in cutting off aid to these states. California particularly faces a fine of $1.2 trillion for Medicare fraud as a result of this investigation.
How are they going to pay for that?
They're not going to be able to. And
so what happens if they?
Well, the feds cut off the money, and I don't know what happens.
Yeah, I'd like to know how they deal with that.
But
it's not like they come and take your home away.
Yeah, they take the California governor's mansion away. But this is serious, and the fierce efforts of Vance to enforce this.
This is great, actually.
To enforce the law.
All right,
I think are fundamental.
The
administration previously halted nearly $250 million in Medicaid funding to Minnesota, following allegations that federal programs were improperly exploited by members of the state's Somali community.
Yeah.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz condemned the decision as a campaign of retribution. Vance defended the action at the time as necessary to protect taxpayers. It's disgraceful that fraudsters out there are taking advantage of programs like Medicaid. So at the moment, they're going after Walz in Minnesota, but the real enemy here is Newsom in California.
Wow, I love it. I think we have time for this Cuba story. Protests erupt in Cuba as fuel runs out. Extensive blackouts and collapsing economy sparked unrest in Havana. We have absolutely no fuel, said the country's energy minister. Cuba ran out of fuel oil and diesel due to U.S. ironclad energy blockade, causing extensive blackouts and protests for 3 days. Cuba's government said the country has completely run out of fuel and diesel needed to keep the lights on, with extensive blackouts sparking protest. Energy minister...
These blackouts are 22 and 24 hours a day.
Yeah, right, yeah. Energy Minister Vicente Della Olivio said that the island has run out of fuel reserve and resulted in ironclad blockade. We said that already. We absolutely have no fuel. We absolutely no diesel, he said at a news conference, right? More than a dozen neighborhoods in capital city of Havana erupted in protests Wednesday night, with residents banging pots and burning garbage amid rising anger over days-long blackouts and deterioration of living conditions. We are back in the Stone Age, this journalist said. She said her neighborhood in central Havana has been without electricity for some 20 hours, and her building, which depends on electricity to power pumps, had no water for 3 days, putting the elderly at risk. As is usual during protests, Cuba's state-run telecommunications monopoly cut internet service. Of course they did, so they wouldn't know what's going on. Cuba produces about 40,000 barrels a day of crude, far short of the 100 barrels they need to cover its daily energy. Fuel imports largely stopped after the Trump administration imposed that blockade on the island. Since then, Cuba's economy has ground to a halt amid recurring prolonged blackouts and gasoline shortages. Fuel rationing has led to public transport cuts and school closure. Food spoils because of lack of refrigeration, and people can't use air conditioning or fan as temperatures rise in the 80s. Cuban President Canal acknowledged Wednesday the deterioration of the island's electricity grid, which has become particularly tense in recent days. This dramatic worsens has a single cause, genocidal energy blockade imposed on our country by the U.S. I don't think so.
Well, now the question is, what can Cuba do about it?
Well,
and the issue is Cuba going to continue, or will they try to tough it out? I think that what's likely to happen here is that Cuba will have to come to the United States and say, please relax this blockade, and we want to convert our system to democracy and to freedom and to gradually privatize all of the casinos, hotels, and
I want to do that.
Yeah.
So listen, Rubio offered $100 million in humanitarian aid to be distributed by the Catholic Church and a free satellite internet service for Cubans. They're never going to agree to that. Then they can't have that propaganda. The regime refused to allow the United States to provide this assistance to the Cuban people. The State Department said Wednesday. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez responded that Cuba was willing to work with the Catholic Church and was ready to hear the U.S. offer, of which it had no details of yet. Rodriguez said it was incongruous of the U.S. to offer aid while submitting the Cuban people to collective punishment through an economic war. The Cuban government does not, as a practice, reject foreign aid that's offered good faith. Well, also, the system of electricity is down. It hasn't been worked on and maintained for like 40 years.
Yeah. But it's their fault.
The grid, it's their fault.
But more importantly, Trump is basically telling them, I'm not going to send troops up the beach. I'm not going to have people jump the fence at Guantanamo and go after you. But what I am going to do is to starve you by lack of oil. And then if you make reforms, which means you bring back capitalism, you bring back free markets, you bring back free information, you hold elections, you do stuff like that, I will gradually turn the oil spigot back on.
But I got to tell you, it's not going to be the government. It's going to be the people rising up against the government that's going to make the issue. Unfortunately, they have to starve a little before they fight their government, because that's what's going to have to happen. I don't see... You think the government's going to concede to any of this, or...
Well, they're going to have to do something.
Anyway, let's take a break, and when we get back, we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Just a word about the beef situation. There are 4 companies, 3 American, 1 Chinese, that completely control the slaughtering and the processing of beef in the United States. And they have conspired to try to force up the price of beef. And they do that by raising the price to the farmers when they take their herds in to be fed and slaughtered. In the past, this was done by hundreds of small slaughterhouses throughout the country, each of which had their own slaughterhouse, raised their cattle on largely grass, and then harvested them into food. But the monopoly has taken place over the last couple of years where 4 firms, including one that's Chinese, Smithfield Ham, have come to control pork and beef production. And this monopoly has been enforced and strengthening its hold. And what the monopoly is doing is by offering farmers very low prices for their cattle, they're forced to getting the farmers to cut the herds. And by not having large herds, they create beef shortages that cause this inflation.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
Now we finally have some action by the feds. Trump is going in and investigating these firms for antitrust violations and may break up this 4-way monopoly of firms. And if he does that, he can induce real competition and real herd size.
As he does best.
Now, don't confuse this with the story we talked about earlier about China running out of people, about the one-child policy.
Oh, horrible.
The cows are not subject to the one-calf policy, but in any case, the herds are reducing, and Trump is fighting that.
That was interesting. Let's go to the phones. Let's get Mike in St. James. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Mike. Are you there? Maybe not. All right, then let's go to Rick in Westchester County. Hello, Rick.
Hi, yeah, I wanted to find out if you're here on a tourist visa and you have a kid here. I mean, does that mean that the kid is a U.S. citizen on a tourist visa?
If the kid is born in the United States, yes. It doesn't matter what the circumstances of you being here are. If the child is born in the U.S., he is an American citizen.
Wait, wasn't that just questioned?
Now, that's being litigated now and is before the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. The left says this means that if you're born in the U.S., that's all you need to know. The conservatives are saying, but wait a minute, how did they get to be in the United States? If they came here legally, that's okay. But if they came here illegally, their children should not be U.S. citizens. And that's now before the Supreme Court. The left says that the precedent that if you're born here, that's it. Has got to stand. The right says that this should not reward people that are trying to pack the country and enter the country illegally.
Where do you think it's going to go?
I don't know.
I know, it's hard to...
I think that this court is inclined to help Trump, and certainly the majority-minority decision in the congressional reapportionment shows that they're willing to take some fairly dramatic action. I suspect that there's now heavy negotiation going on among the judges to craft a decision. My guess is, and this is a guess, is that there will be a decision that says that if you're here illegally, in the future, you can't be a citizen. But in the past, you can be. Because they're not going to go around and uproot 150 years of history and tell millions of people that they're not American citizens who think that they are. But that's a guess.
Wow, but that's a good guess, though. I got to say that. All right, was that Rick? That was Rick, right? Okay, let's do the story. I'm waiting for Bruce Blakeman to call in. Hopefully he calls in. And then don't worry, Sandra, we're going to have you on right after Bruce, because the story goes on with you. Anyway, Trump delivers 12 straight months of zero southwest border migrant release. This is amazing. The Department of Homeland Security, announced this week that April marked 12 consecutive months of zero release of illegal aliens apprehended by the Border Patrol at the southwest border with Mexico into the United States. A milestone officials say reflects the most secure border in American history under President Trump. What do you got, a magic wand, sir? Remember Obama asked him if he had a magic wand? DHS reports a 94% drop in illegal border apprehensions compared to the Biden era, with daily crossings now lower what agents encountered in a single hour at the height of, I don't know what that means, 12 straight months of zero releases at the border under Trump. Two years ago, Border Patrol agents, under orders from Biden and the DHS Secretary Mayorkas, released more than 68,000 illegal aliens who were apprehended at the border into the U.S. interior, according to the CBP.
It's important to think about the implications of this. The big implication, I think, is crime. Every municipality in the U.S., crime and drugs, is reporting a dramatic drop in murders and robberies. And the U.S. announced that the number of drug overdoses has been cut in half under Trump. Instead of about 130,000, it's about 80,000 as a result of Trump's efforts. You'd like to think these are all from enforcement and cops and all of that. But I think a big factor here, the big factor is immigration control. And we are simply not letting murderers and rapists and killers and robbers into the United States. We're not letting drug dealers in. We're kicking the ones that are here out. And it's having a huge effect on all of the social pathology. So all of the liberal sociologists who say that it's the result of rehab, and all of the conservatives who say it's the result of good police enforcement, are both wrong. It's ICE throwing them the hell out of the country and not allowing them in. And you're seeing this ripple through the economy and causing tremendous success for the Trump administration.
Listen, knock on the front door. Listen, you want to come to my house? Actually, first call me. And then I'll let you know if you could come in, and then knock on the door. And that's pretty much it. So listen, I'm going to just tell you, we're trying to have Bruce on. I'm waiting for him to call in. So we're going to have Sandra in a second. Let me read this to you from Peter King. Today's LIRR, the Long Island Railroad strike, was caused by failure of leadership by Kathy Hochul. The governor found the time and money to buy off Mandani, but had no time or energy to prevent the strike, which will impact hundreds of thousands of hard-working New Yorkers. Vote Bruce Blakeman, governor of New York. That's Peter King. Now let's go to the phone with Sandra. I was going to have you after Bruce called in, but let's have you now, Sandra. How you doing, Sandra?
Doing very well. I went to 2 yoga classes this morning at 9 o'clock. I started out, and I'm back, and I'm roaring to go. You know, I want to say, first of all, I can't thank you both enough for coming to the Sean Spicer event.
Thank you for having us.
Well, always. I want you to come to the next one, too, with Yanya Kell. It's very important. But I want to say to Dick, he takes that microphone, and he really, really enhances the conversation.
He is something.
Well, the point I made there was Sean Spicer.
He was great.
Has written this wonderful book called Trump 2.0. You should get it. It really explains what happened between the 2 Trump presidencies and why Trump was able to turn things around in his second term, and was the result of hitting the ground running in a huge, big effort. Spicer makes the point that you never have a chance to sit there at the end of an administration that is less than successful and say, why have we failed? But here we did. And after the first term, everybody got together and they figured out how could we change things if we got back into power. And he itemizes how that was done. But the specific thing I said was, I guess everybody's realizing the incredible transformation that's taking place as a result of the court decision that majority-minority districts are illegal, and that you cannot take race into account in drawing district lines. And the court ruled that after 2 hearings, 2 arguments, which is very unusual. And even after in both our hearings, it became clear that there were 6 judges prepared to change the law and 3 that wanted to continue with, the 3 liberals. And the 3 liberals said, oh, you have to wait till we write our dissent. And the dissent, they took forever to write the dissent. And the rulings did not come out in March or April or even in May. And finally, Sean Spicer got word that this was a deliberate effort by the left to drag their feet in the dissenting opinion, not to change the outcome. They knew they couldn't do that, but to delay it so that we did not have time to reapportion in time for the 2026 elections. And that effort we just reported earlier in this show is a big controversy in 4 southern states where they're protecting the seats of black incumbents, Benny Thompson and Jim Clyburn. And because of what Spicer exposed, this is stopping. And I complimented Sean Spicer for doing that and urge everybody to read his book.
And it was a great speech, too. What else you got, Sandra?
Well, I wanted to say, as I get to know Hochul, the governor.
Jokel.
She's the queen of the blame game. She has the nerve to blame the strike on Bruce Blakeman and Donald Trump. It doesn't make sense. Now there's a Mr. Samuelson. He represents 40,000 subway and bus workers, and he gets involved in all the contracts. He said Hochul and her people are the ones to blame because they did not follow the federal patterns that they said would help prevent the strike. So she's to blame. And I want you to know, you know how I feel about Bruce Blakeman. When you see him in person, you get to know him, you're just blown away. He said that he wants to get rid of that $9 congestion thing now because it's going to help the people. And Hochul saying, no, sorry, it's not legally possible. And she's saying, maybe you guys just work from your home. Not everybody can work from their home. Some people don't have the computers that you need to work from the home. I mean, she's just not very compassionate to the people, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And Bruce Blakeman is. He loves the people. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
We talked earlier about money being paid to employees of the Federal Reserve Board and the employees of the Fed using campaign contributions to left organizations to try to control the economy. But if you want to talk about media corruption, it was discovered that the left-wing political organization has 80 embedded journalists in corporate media paying their full salaries. Breitbart News has previously reported on LinkedIn that Reid Hoffman's dark money election meddling, as well as Facebook co-founder Dustin Moskovitz' deep penetration of Biden's administration, combined with AI activists. You actually now have information that for the first time, they are literally paying subsidies to journalists on MS Now to bias the news. That's why the left wing is so prevalent in MS Now. They won't report anything positive Donald Trump has done.
No, why would they?
They give it a negative spin. But this is not just ideology, which I thought was just that they were all liberals. Long march. But in fact, it's worse than that. In fact, it's a bribing journalists to report the news as they see fit.
Wow. Listen, we got to go to break. We have Bruce Blakeman on the line. We're going to come back when we talk to Bruce. Can't wait for that. Thank you very much.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. We have Bruce Blakeman with us, who is running for governor and wants as the Republican candidate in this election.
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
Good, thank you. It's an honor to be with you.
It's an honor to have you. You're the next governor.
Well, things are going really well. We've got a lot of momentum, and between Kathy Hochul and Zoran Mandami, they're my best weapon in winning this election because they can't get anything straight. The whole state's upside down. It's overtaxed. Our electric bills are 70% higher than the national average. We're 41 out of 50 states in economic development. It's a mess here. Now we have our biggest commuter rail line. The workers are on strike. It's all because of Kathy Hochul and her lack of leadership.
Wow, and she's framing you and Trump.
Yeah.
Well, she blames Trump for everything.
You too now.
Yeah, well.
Bruce Blakeman is really our appellate court from Mamdani. We collectively in New York voters screwed up and elected Mamdani.
Hold it. And he's the Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court,
not
right.
Right.
And the only regular course we have here is electing Bruce Blakeman governor and having him discipline Mamdani and maybe removing him at some point.
Well, Dick, thank you very much. Yes, we have to keep him in check because this is a guy who is a communist.
Ugh.
He is someone who has un-American values. He is someone that has inflamed anti-Semitism in this city. So far, his marks in his first 100 days in office, I would say, are straight Fs.
Yeah, F for you know what.
Straight F, except that by his lights, a lot of them are A's. He's advanced anti-Semitism. He's eliminated anti-bias programs.
You're right.
He's succeeded in handcuffing the police. So he's doing fine.
So, Bruce, you're governor. What do you do? What's the first thing you do?
Well, the first thing I do when I become governor is at 12:01 on January 1st, 2027, I pardon Sergeant Duran, the one who was convicted of manslaughter when he just merely threw a cooler in the way of a perpetrator who was involved in a drug deal and had been out on felonious assault and was driving a motorbike at a high rate of speed on a sidewalk, could have severely hurt or killed police officers and pedestrians. And this guy just threw a cooler in his way to slow him down, and a jury convicted him. I can't even believe he was prosecuted.
Wow.
So at 12:01, I pardoned Sergeant Duran. At 12:02, I signed an executive order that we are not a sanctuary state anymore. We're going to stop spending $8 billion on people who aren't New Yorkers. They're not even Americans. They just come here for free housing, free food, free transportation,
right,
and a free cell phone.
Wow, good.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this officer. I don't remember that story. That's horrible. He should have shot him. Then he would.
But,
well, you know what? The point is, Dick, that if he wanted to use lethal force, he had a weapon.
Right.
He didn't want to use lethal force. It wasn't his intention to kill this guy. His intention was to slow him down. But you know how it is with our prosecutors here in New York State. They're out of control. We need an adult in the room. I'll be a governor that is pro-cop. I'll be a governor that's pro-common sense. And I will be a governor that makes people happy again by instilling American values, economic development, cutting utility bills in half, and cutting taxes.
I love it.
Let's talk to us a bit about the LIRR strike. How is that Hochul's fault?
Well, it's a total lack of leadership, and she can't manage anything. The fact of the matter is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we had a nurses' strike this past year, and there was no reason for it. She was very, very difficult in the negotiations. The nurses made reasonable requests, and then she brought in nurses from out of state to cross picket lines, created a lot of consternation, and now she fired corrections officers who went on strike because with the HALT Act and other very, very liberal laws that Kathy Hochul has enacted, the prisoners are now running the jails. The corrections officers were saying, you got to improve conditions. It's not only unsafe for corrections officers, it's unsafe for prisoners. And she fired them. She can't get along with labor unions. She can't get along with ordinary
Read them
people.
that statement by Peter King, okay?
Yeah. Continue, Bruce. I got to look for it while you're still talking.
Yeah, well, Pete's a great guy. We love Pete King.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's a real patriot. But here's the thing. How come we have $8 billion for illegal migrants, but we can't find money for nurses, corrections officers, and railroad workers?
Unbelievable.
I'd rather spend the money on them than spend it on illegal migrants who've been here for 15 minutes and get $81,000 worth of benefits, and they're not New Yorkers.
That's their incentive. Here, let me read this thing from Peter. Today's LIRR, the Long Island Railroad strike, was caused by a failure of leadership by Kathy Hochul. The governor found the time and money to buy off Mandani, I call him Man-Kami, but had no time or energy to prevent this strike, which will impact hundreds of thousands of hardworking New Yorkers. Vote Bruce Blakeman, governor of New York. That was a nice little post.
We love Pete. He's a great friend and a great supporter.
He's a good guy.
I think that New York, with the sanctuary city policy and the sanctuary state policy, is so out of step with what Trump is doing. You look at the statistics in New York where there's been a reduction in crime, a reduction in homicides, not because of any action being taken by Man-Kami. In fact, it's the opposite, but by the deporting of illegal immigrants. There are fewer people, so there's less crime, there's less murder. I just saw a statistic that the drug overdose deaths in the United States have dropped from 130,000 a year to 70,000 a year.
Wow, half.
This year. And the result is all because of the deportation policies.
Of course.
And Kathy Hochul is standing in the way of that.
So, Bruce, you would obviously pony up with Trump with this, right? With the sanctuary city and get rid of that. And
Yeah, so my county's larger than 8 states in population. We have almost 1.5 million people. And U.S. News and World Report named my county the safest county in America. And we're on the border of New York City. So that's quite a feat. We've got great police officers, sheriff's officers, corrections officers, probation officers. They work very hard each and every day. We support them. I hire, not fire. And the fact of the matter is, I have the most comprehensive agreement with ICE in the United States of America. And as a result, in just 1 year, this last year, we removed 2,000 illegal migrants with criminal records from attempted murder to rape to carjacking, burglary, robbery, drug dealing, and gang activity, and got them out of our county, out of our state, and out of America.
God bless you.
I'm very proud of that.
Oh, that's beautiful. You know, we have the best police force in the world, I think, New York does. It's if they don't have backup. I asked a couple of big-time guys, you know, at Trump Tower, I was talking to them, and I said, let me ask you a question. If Mandami tells you not to help ICE. They come into a building and they're getting in trouble. And he tells you guys to stand down. Are you going to stand down? They said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Well, God bless them. So I'm on my way from Brooklyn to Staten Island right now. I was in Brooklyn today. Every time I meet a police officer, NYPD, they say the same thing to me. God bless you. We pray that you're governor. We need someone to have our back.
Oh, I can't wait. We have to have it happen.
Our back with Mamdani our front as well.
Yeah, right.
Now, what about the pied-à-terre tax? What's your thought on that, Bruce?
Well, it's just antithetical to common sense that Kathy Hochul would drive high net worth individuals out of our state, and they're leaving in droves.
Yeah.
And when they leave, it leaves a gap in tax revenue, and they take jobs with them. So it's absolutely asinine to run these people out of town. We are already the highest tax state in America. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. So when these guys leave, they have choices. They can go to Scottsdale, Arizona. They can go to Miami, Boca Raton, Charleston, South Carolina. When they leave, they take jobs. It's going to hurt the carpenter, the electrician, the plumber, the restaurant owner, the waiter, the waitress, the cleaning service, the dog walker.
Everyone's trickled down.
It hurts the middle class. And that's what I'm out there saying. I'm beating the drum. I'm telling regular, common, ordinary people, yeah, it sounds good to tax the rich, but here are the consequences. It's going to fall into your lap. It's not fair, and it's not good for the economy. We're number 41. The once great Empire State is number 41 in economic development in the United States.
Unbelievable.
It's a national embarrassment.
Bruce, are you on all the social media? Like, how are you getting out to the people on the left? That's the one thing. You're preaching to the choir here. I always tell everyone that's on this thing you got to get to the people in the middle, the independents. What do? You go to social media? What are you on? What should people look for?
First of all, people who want to contribute to my campaign or volunteer or just get information, go to BlakemanForNewYork.com, BlakemanForNewYork.com. You can go on Instagram. You can go on Facebook. You can tweet, social, Truth Social. We're on all that. I put out a tremendous amount of content each and every day. I put out more content than Kathy Hochul. Go look at my sites. You're going to get a good laugh. We make fun of Kathy Hochul. We make fun of Zohran Mamdani. We have a good time, but we have an important message, and that is help is on the way. New Yorkers are miserable. I want to make them happy again.
Absolutely.
Lower taxes, cut utility costs in half, create economic prosperity and development, and have safer communities.
And use some of our money to pay the LIRR workers decently.
Yeah.
So they end the strike.
And by the way, Bruce, I call her Kathy Jokel, and you could use that. Just give me credit. And man-commie.
Yeah.
No, moron man-commie.
Yeah. His full name.
That's his full name.
Well, Bruce, God bless you.
Thank you,
God bless
Bruce.
you guys. Thank you so much.
God bless you. I'd love to see you, governor. We're going to take a break.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DiPirro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. U.S. industrial production rose in April at the fastest pace in more than a year. Those who claim the Trump economy is only so-so, U.S. industrial production rose in April at the fastest pace in more than a year, powered by a broad manufacturing gain led by autos and supported by strong outputs from computers, electronics, and other industries, seeing renewed demand due to investments in artificial intelligence. Industrial production rose 0.7% in April, reversing a 0.3% decline in March. The increase was the largest since February 25, and lifted total industrial output to its highest level since August 2019. Manufacturing output, which accounts for about 3/4 of total industrial production, rose 0.6%. This was also the strongest monthly gain since February of last year. Both overall figure and manufacturing figure exceeded the most optimistic estimates of economists. You read news stories, and they drive me crazy, that despite the slump in economic ratings, despite the negative economic signs, the economy is booming. It's doing great. It's entirely due to the huge tax cut bill that Donald Trump got passed early in his term, the single beautiful bill. And we've got to understand and realize that industrial production and the economy is doing great. Yeah, gas prices are a little higher. Yeah, they may remain higher while we take care of national security and stop Iran from developing a nuclear bomb. But thank God we have Donald Trump to keep Iran in check and keep our economy moving at a wonderful pace.
Wow. Good. Thank God for Donald Trump, isn't it? So, Bruce Blakeman, let's just go to, I wrote down his little website here, blakemanfornewyork.com. Blakeman for
And you
New
have to see
York.
Blakeman as our second chance after we elected Mamdani. Because only...
Like you said, appellate court.
The appellate court, yeah.
That's good.
New York City is a creature of New York State legally. And they require the state to do anything significant. And Blakeman can stop that. You can stop Mamdani by electing Blakeman.
Oh, we have to
It'll be our
do
last
that.
chance, but we can.
Everyone get out and talk to all your friends. We got to get this guy elected. Dick Morris, it's been an honor. Thank you very much.
It's been
Thank
great.
you, Roxana on the rocks. Excellent. And thank everyone else. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?